I finally figured out how to balance the DLC in this game. It's actually very simple. So there's a few things that you should know about how the DLC influences the game. The first thing is that on certain chapters, when you lose all of your emblem rings, on chapters 11 and 22, you can use DLC emblems because they're considered bracelets, not rings, or whatever. So you can still use them. So the first thing to do is to not use them on those chapters. That's one way. So you're gonna have to manually balance this yourself, all right? There's not like a mode in the game that balances it for you. If you wanna use DLC without it breaking the game as much as it tends to, this is how you do it. All right, so the first thing you do is you don't use emblems on 11 and 22. That's the first step. The second thing is substitution. So instead of doing all the divine paralogs in the main game and running all the main emblems, what you do is every time you get an emblem, so you don't run any DLC until chapter 11, and then starting in chapter 11, like after you beat chapter 11, in chapter 12, you do not use Lucina and you do not use Lynn, and then you go get Tiki, and then you go get whatever other one you want. So you replace Lucina and Lynn with Tiki and something else, and then you keep doing that for each emblem. So you actually just stop using main emblems. So no Byleth, you replace it with something else. Don't use Ike, replace it with Hector, and do that. And then don't do the paralogs of the emblems you're not using. So like, you're not going to be able to replace all the emblems. There's going to be some emblems you can't replace, but if you want it to be balanced, as you would get, you know, Ike, run Hector instead, don't do Ike's paralog. You have to do that for up to 7 emblems, because I think there's just like 7 DLC emblems. So that would be the first step to balancing the game. This limits XP. So the main reason the DLC emblems are broken is because they can drastically scale the amount of XP you get on your units and power level them and make them cracked. So if you limit when you do these paralogs and how many of these paralogs, like how many paralogs in general you do, the XP scaling is not as much of a factor, and you still have to beat these relatively difficult divine paralogs in order to unlock the emblems themselves. So you'd actually have to have pretty solid team comps, and you couldn't just rely on all the existing emblems to do that for you. And if you don't do it early, like if you just get all the emblem rings, if you get all seven emblems early, you'll have a power level team that just stomps the game, and you'll just have all these crazy emblems. So you have to do it as you get new emblems after chapter 11. And I think this would be one of the most balanced ways to do this. I'm going to test this and I'll like document it as I go, but I think this is the way to balance it. And then also for like the xenologue stuff, you just don't do it. And if you're going to run xenologue characters, if you want it to be balanced, unlock them after chapter 16 or 17. Otherwise they're going to be too powerful and just ruin your game. And have them replace other units. Like, so if you're running Rafal, have him replace Panette. If you're running Nell, have her replace like a Marin or a Chloe or something. So like, don't run all of the best things plus all the best DLC units, because that will also break a save file. So I think if you do all those things, you should have a relatively balanced experience that's similar to the base game. If you just don't do the xenologue, don't equip the bracelets on chapter 11 and 12, don't unlock them early, unlock them as you get emblems, and then replace those emblems with those. You'll have to consciously not use Lynn, not use Lucina. You can replace different ones, it depends on how you want to handle it, but this would be like the best way to balance it, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to have too many options. You're going to be able to use all these different emblems, and don't use the engravings. So like, if you're not using Lucina in a playthrough, don't use Lucina's engraving. So this way you would have to consciously choose which emblems you want. And of course you could be like, okay, I don't want to run Camilla, so let's run Lucina instead of Camilla, whatever. You could choose who replaces who and why, but this would be the way to do it so it's balanced, and it's not going to ruin your save file, make the game too easy. I'm not sure how hard it still would be, but it could be decent. It could be reasonable. Now, if you just start doing the DLC after chapter 12 or after chapter 11, you don't have to worry about not equipping the bracelets early because you won't have them. The main issue is like the Tiki scaling and stuff like that early, but if you get Tiki mid-game, I think that'd be more balanced, because then you don't have like, you know, an Alir star sphered from chapter like 7 to whenever, just like power leveling on divine paralogs, just being completely cracked out of their mind. You can do that with every early game unit. Just get them on Star Sphere early and they just become really cracked, because they get like build +3, strength, magic, health, defense, res +3 by that point. You know, from the 20 level ups on fixed mode with Star Sphere equals +3 to all your stats, so pretty ridiculous, aside from move. But I think that's the way to balance it. Now, you don't have to do this, but if you want it to be more of a challenge, if you want it to be less overpowered, less game breaking, this would be the way to do it. Because if you just skip mainline paralogs for divine paralogs, then you're not getting excess XP. Because that's really where the excess XP comes from, is doing all those mainline chapters in addition to divine paralogs. Another way to do it would be to limit the amount of divine paralogs you do. Like, let's say you want to do substitution, just substitute like 2 or 3 emblems in, and then, you know, substitute out 2 or 3 emblems from the main game. And don't do those paralogs, don't use those engravings, just pretend like they don't exist. Now, it'd be cool if there were mods for this, but unfortunately we don't have that. So you're gonna have to do it all manually, which most people will do like self-imposed challenges anyways, so it's not really that much of an ask. Now, you don't have to do this, it's just optional, but I was just thinking about this is the way that I might start running DLC. I'll like run like 2 DLC emblems and I'll remove 2 main game emblems. That way it'll have like minimal impact, but I can still use those and it won't be broken. Because this was like a thing, this is like the reason I don't run DLC, right? Like, it usually makes the game too easy. But in this case, I would do like 1 or 2 divine paralogs and then just drop 2 emblems and act like they don't exist, don't use their engravings, don't do their paralogs, and then I can have a more balanced experience while also having fun with those tools in a more balanced setting, so I don't feel like the game is just broken now. But yeah, thanks for checking this out. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoy videos like this, and I'll see you next one. Peace.